you got to be responsible for you.
Right.
You can't be looking to an ex or your millions of followers to make yourself feel better. I think it does a disservice to the rest of the younger generations, because it makes people think that they need to look outwardly for validation.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think there's only one way to look for validation and for kind of feeling whole. And that's to look internally and to breathe.
Great point. What up? It's Dramos, and this is the recap. Of course, as I do each and every week, breaking down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. We've got a very special guest hopping on in just a little bit. It is family hopping on, the host of BrunoVision right here on LATV. Our guy Bruno will be hopping on in just a little bit to help me break down some of the bigger headlines from this last week. But before he gets on, let's get into some of the BS from this last week. Now, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Life is pretty scary right now. Like, so scary and actually unbelievable that you can't help but kind of laugh, because life is playing out like this really weird and predictable movie. Like, it's like people are writing skits, and instead of taking the time to, take these skits to the screen, they're like, you know what? To hell with it. Why not just act out these ridiculous situations right here in real life? I mean, take the man that's believed to be responsible for the bomb threat that happened this last week at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And this was a man who demanded to speak to President Biden, or else he threatened to detonate a bomb. That man, Floyd Ray Roseberry, yes, real name. This is real life. And he's like the real life wet dream of any casting director out there who's trying to fill the role of a white supremacist for their next movie. And the beauty of casting Floyd in said movie is that he already owns his own pickup truck, cowboy hat, and dirty boots, which inevitably would help that film keep its budget down, which is a beautiful thing. And listen, I know that this is like very serious stuff, but at this point, what else can you do but laugh to keep from crying? I mean, sadly, we live in a world where people are getting their information from Facebook and then throwing their lives away after reading some ridiculous conspiracy theory. And what's even scarier about all of this is that these crazy people feel so justified in their actions and their beliefs that they've read on the internet that they then feel the need to hop back on Facebook and go live to document their crimes and overall idiocracy as if they were a teenage girl writing in their diary. And while all of this should be scary for anyone, it is particularly scary if you are a person of color. Because staying true to his MAGA-loving white supremacist character, one of Floyd's biggest gripes was allegedly, you guessed it, undocumented immigrants. And of course, you'll have people saying, oh, well, the media is exaggerating this story. It's not that big of a deal. He didn't have a real bomb. They're only talking about this because it's connected to Trump. Well, to that, I'd remind people out there that for most people watching this program right now, we do not have the option of not taking stories like this seriously. Because sadly, we live in a country where we are a target for people like Floyd Ray Roseberry and the thousands of other people in this country who share his crazy and nonsensical beliefs. You see, while the events of the last 4 years plus in this country have led to what feels like a hell of a movie script, it's important for those of us who should just go back to where we came from. Yeah, we have to remind ourselves and always keep our guard up, because sadly, here in the real world, the good guys, they don't always win. And that is a sad fact we have to keep in mind, and why we have to take stories like this very seriously. Now, I know that's incredibly heavy. We're going to lighten things up a little bit with my guest this week. Hopping on right now to help me break down some of the other big headlines from this last week He is a member of the LATV family. He hosts the show BrunoVision right here on LATV. Bruno, how we feeling, bro?
Man, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Ready to dissect the news.
Yes. Let's dive into some stuff in the only way that Bruno can. I love your show because it is like painfully awkward to watch, and it makes it hilarious. You know what I mean? It's like it's like the most genius thing. You know, like you makes you so uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It's just an incredible talent that you have with your brand of comedy.
Thank you very much. You know, it's funny. Like that's really not me as a person. So
yeah.
Sometimes, like I get a lot of inspiration from Zach Galifianakis, Between Two Ferns, and Eric Andre, Tim and Eric, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And so I crafted this character, and in doing so, I realized how difficult it is to sit in that discomfort. You know,
right.
And even when I'm in character, it's like, oh my god, like I cannot. You know, luckily most of the guests so far I've known, at least a little bit beforehand. Sure. But it's going to be interesting when I get to strangers and have to deal with that discomfort that I see on their face.
You see, but at least with you, it's like purposely done to make you feel uncomfortable. Whereas with some of the things in real life that I wanted to get your take on from this last week, sadly, they're not meant to make us feel uncomfortable. They just kind of do. So if it's cool with you, I want to get into a few stories. Then I do want to dive into BrunoVision a little more afterwards.
Let's do it, man.
All right. So one of the most painful things to watch, I think, recently has been how Alex Rodriguez has publicly handled this breakup with Jennifer Lopez. It is corny and cheesy in all of the most uncomfortable ways to see the different things that he's doing. His latest one was posing in a picture in front of like a gang of Porsches, but one of the Porsches looks like the Porsche that he bought J-Lo for her birthday a couple years ago. And he says on there, and I quote, his caption is, "I'm super down to earth." And that's it. So, I mean, it's how do you feel as somebody who has to get into character, you know, of making things awkward, realizing that actually real life is pretty damn awkward as well?
You know, it's funny. I just saw that this morning, actually. That post. And, you know, I didn't really know what he was like as a person. And then I started watching him. He plays a guest role on Shark Tank every so often. And so I watched him there, and he is kind of like a cringy dad figure. You know what I mean? Like he just embodies this like cringe, and you think of him as that all-star athlete, you know, but in reality, he's super cringe person. And so to be honest, I'm not surprised at the way he's handling this at all. Like he's kind of butthurt and just very aggressively jealous, I think. With at that age, and you know, being in as many relationships and experiences as he's been in, I feel like, come on, bro, it's over. You know, let's move on. Like, you know, it's like, I get that you're kind of an uncomfortable person in general, but it makes everyone look bad. Like, it makes him look bad. It's not good for J-Lo. J-Lo's probably super pissed about it. Right.
It also shows you that like money can't change who a person really is. If you are just like a cringy kind of corny person, all the money in the world does not change that. And being on social media,
it makes it worse.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, can you think though, for you, what have been your go-to like breakup, how to get over a breakup, and have you had any cringy moments for yourself when you're like dealing with a similar situation?
Good question. You know, early on I have just like the sort of constantly hitting them up and being like, you know, but like, you know, what about this? Like, what about that night at the mall when we were in the movie theater? You know? Like, bringing up like very specific good moments that we had. But I feel like, you know, over time, which is what I would hope for A-Rod, over time, I've sort of, instead of channeling that energy in sort of like a negative format and affecting people negatively, I've actually channeled it into my creativity. And I have a clothing brand called Dirty But Delicate, and I tell this story a lot. One of the biggest inspirations and reasons that I started the brand was because of a breakup. And I was like crying and designing and crying and designing. And I didn't even know what I was making graphics for, but the graphics turned out to be my first t-shirts. And so that grief and that pain that I was feeling was actually being channeled into Photoshop and Illustrator. And I was able to use that for my benefit. So I think as we evolve, it's important to use that pain and that sorrow to benefit yourself, because after all, you got to be okay with you at the end of the day. You know what I mean? No one's going to make it all right if you're not all right. So that's what I would hope for A-Rod.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good take, and it's definitely, I think you're dealing with found a way to deal with those things in a lot healthier of a manner that he has. I mean, staying on the trend of like kind of cringy celebrity social media moments, this last week we also saw Lizzo taking to Instagram and crying, which kind of seems like it's becoming a very common thing for her. And not to say that what she's upset about isn't real. She's getting a lot of hate, a lot of backlash in response to like her recent song, and a lot of people, you know, criticizing her looks and fat shaming, you know, all these different things that we're seeing. But it is interesting to me when people decide that like going on Instagram is the healthiest way to deal with like your own internal struggle. And it's just like this weird like world that we live in today, where it's like, you know, you see those videos of like people filming like something really brutal happening and like, oh my God, somebody call the police while you're holding a cell phone filming it. You know what I mean? Like
bro, you call the police. What are you
right. It's just like this weird thing that we don't feel like we're heard unless we're broadcasting it to like social media and the entire world. I mean, does this kind of trip you out? Like we're just kind of watching, I don't know, our generation, kind of how we're utilizing these incredible tools that we have?
You know, another great question. I think it's a multifaceted answer. There are, you know, it's funny, like there's something about when you're able to, you know, I can't speak from experience because I don't have millions of followers like Lizzo does.
Sure.
But when you have that network, I think, and a fan base, you know, it's tempting to express yourself, especially, you know, a lot of artists get caught up in the ego. And I think Lizzo, as an artist should be, is very into herself.
Sure.
So there's something about seeing yourself reflected on screen and then knowing that it's that message is getting out to millions of people, that I think in a way can be healing. Because like, hey, like this is what I'm going through. These people support me. Like, let them know what's good, and hopefully I'll get a good response back. The alternative to that is, it's pretty crazy. Like it looks pretty insane to be doing that, especially when you know that not everyone's going to be down for that. And it is a little bit self-indulgent and like, hey, look at me, I'm sad, like come to my rescue, when just cutting back to what I was saying before, it's like you got to be responsible for you. You can't be looking to an ex or your millions of followers to make yourself feel better. I think it does a disservice to the rest of the younger generations, because it makes people think that they need to look outwardly for validation. Right.
Absolutely.
And I think there's only one way to look for validation and for kind of feeling whole. And that's to look internally and to breathe.
Great point. Right.
One of my biggest things when I feel kind of out of whack is just to sit down and breathe, do some breathing exercises and remember like who the F I am, you know?
Right.
It's important to just remember like, I got this. I'm okay. So it goes both ways.
That's a great point. And it's interesting because I struggle with this. I'm like, man, like we have so much power just in like this little device right here. You know what I mean? Like we're all connected to like pretty much anybody in the world that we want to be connected to. We are, you know what I mean? Yes. Instantaneously. But it's also interesting how it's like turned society almost into like egotistical maniacs. You know what I mean? It's like, because I also think that social media has like kind of made everybody a celebrity to a degree. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, you would see, you know, whatever celebrities in the tabloids on some sort of vacation and taking whatever pictures you saw, like, you know, these glamour shots at the beach. But now it's like everybody has the opportunity to take their glamour shots and share it with like an audience that is following them and like feel almost like a celebrity. And I just wonder if like 20 years, 30 years down the line, we're going to look back on this time period and be like, oh my goodness, what a low point for humanity, you know?
We might. I mean, there's two options. We might do that, or it might get worse.
That's the scary part, yeah.
That's the scary part, is like, if we keep perpetuating these images of like, you know, what it means to be okay in this society that we live in, you know, it's a slippery slope, because at what point does it become too much, over the top? And like you said, these selfies and these booty pics and whatever are being broadcast to thousands, millions of people. And then you feel like you're not yourself anymore. You're those booty pics, or you're those selfies. You become a caricature of yourself.
Yeah, and your validation comes from like how many likes you're getting on there, you know?
Yeah, and I've seen it firsthand. You know, I have friends, acquaintances, a lot of people in my life who, for better or worse, you know, that's where they get their validation, and it's dangerous. Yeah.
No, it's true. And I mean, I think we all can fall victim to it, myself included. You know what I mean? I've had to check myself a few times from like, whether it's like, you know, negative comments and me letting it affect me more than it needs to, or even like too much of the positive stuff and allowing it to, you know, maybe make me have my head a little bigger than it needs to be, you know? So it's definitely easy if you're not aware of it. Like, hey, I can get really wrapped up in this nonsense if I'm not careful, you know? But yeah, I mean, I think that we just, like you were saying earlier, need to realize that like that self-love has to come from yourself. You know what I mean? You have to look inward for that love and that validation, you know?
Yes.
I mean, all right. So positive stuff now, when it comes to like this era that we're in, is that there is like this huge push for representation. And because of technology, you have so many people being able to have multiple outlets to get their creative works out there and multiple stories being told. I had talked about last week, Blue Beetle having a Latin lead in that role. There's also this comic book, La Borinqueña, which just announced a Chinese Dominican character in the comic book. So obviously representation is happening right now. Well, actually, first and foremost, if you were given a superhero power, what would it be?
Wow.
Yeah, just first and foremost, and I'll get to what my actual question was, but I'm always curious about people's, the choice.
I feel like I've been asked this before. I feel like I always have different answers depending on the week, and what I'm going through at the time.
Sure.
I feel like I think one of the coolest superpowers would be to be able to connect on an emotional level with anyone.
Sure.
So, and that's something that I've spent a lot of time building that skill. Just as a human, but it's difficult, and I think it'd be really cool to connect and speak. You know, no language, just erase language barriers and be able to connect and speak on a real heart-to-heart level with anyone in the world.
Right.
I feel like, and I wish that for everyone. I feel like that would change how we perceive each other and how we value what's important and what isn't. And I think that would be cool, just to me personally, to get an insight on, you know, how different people experience different things. And I'm very, you know, I studied sociology. I'm very interested in human interaction. So I feel like that's cool.
I mean, emotional intelligence, like as a whole, is just a very underrated thing. You know what I mean? Like to be in tune with what people are feeling and be very present to what's going on. You know what I mean? Like beneath kind of the surface of somebody when you're having a conversation, and kind of being able to read a room. Those are incredibly like important things. Like, and anybody who masters that, you can definitely like kind of tell the difference when they walk into a room. You know, there's certain people, like I even say like Will Smith to me is like an alien because he's just mastered that like to the 15th degree, you know?
I've heard
like,
that.
Yeah, he's just like, he walks in a room and like figures out a way to make every single person like a part of what's happening in that room. And that's just such a talent, you know?
It's such a talent.
Yeah. But I mean, you're talking like almost even like Professor X type stuff where you can like go in somebody's mind, you know what I mean? Which I think is like
100%.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think that's like a super underrated superhero power. A lot of people would want like some sort of super strength, like invisibility, but to be able to read somebody's mind, you know what I mean? And to like figure out ways to connect, you know, and I think that would probably be the most powerful one. Which I like that answer.
The barrier of language, you know, like I was just in Europe, and I met so many cool people in Paris and Italy, and you know, I couldn't really communicate with them effectively.
Sure.
And so to be able to have like almost like a mind meld conversation, like you said, would be super beneficial.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, all right. So my actual question with this thing, though, when it comes to like these stories being told, is there a story that you wish was being told? Like, is there something out there that you feel like, you know, for as many, you know, stories that are being told out there, this one is still not being like seen publicly? You know what I mean? Is there something that you wish you could see in media right now?
I'm going to use this as an opportunity to plug LATV.
Nice. Go for it.
I feel like you know, Andres and I, when we kind of took over creatively, our mission was to tell this story about Latinos that weren't being told. And I feel like, and it's multiple stories, but the crux of it is that, you know, we are more than just telenovelas and soccer matches.
Yes.
And I think, you know, when people ask me, hey, like, oh, what's LATV all about? Like, is it like Telemundo? You know, nothing against Telemundo, but I'm proud to say, like, it's actually kind of the opposite. You know,
I agree.
Instead of speaking Spanish and sort of creating this exclusive environment, we're speaking English and some Spanish, but, you know, mostly English, and, you know, bringing our culture to the world.
Right.
Like, yes, we're Latin, and yes, our programming reflects who we are, but we're bringing it to everybody. Right. This is not just for Latinos. It's for third, fourth, fifth generation Latinos. It's for Latinos who have just arrived, and it's for every culture. It's for white people too. You know, it's
right.
It's not something where we want a language barrier or a cultural barrier to interrupt the progress that we can make as a community. Because already in the Latino culture, there's a lot of like infighting with you know, whether you're Salvadorian or Cuban or Dominican, you know, there's all these different cultures within our culture, and so that creates a difficulty as well as the language barrier. So I think the story that we're hopefully telling, and that hasn't been told for a long time, is that Latinos are much more than what your preconceived notions are about us. And yes, we are still into novellas and soccer, but we, you know, we're just like you, and whether you're Black, Asian, whatever it may be, we want to kind of give ourselves the opportunity to infiltrate the minds of people who are, you know, who are interested in culture and who are interested in Latinos, but don't know where to start. Like, start with LATV. Yeah. So that would be the story that I hope is being told and was not told until, you know, very recently.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, that's one thing that really attracted me to LATV, you know what I mean? Because it was so diverse, different types of voices, you know what I mean? You had the LGBTQ plus, you know, representation, you know, you had Cuban representation, you had the Mexican representation, you know, it's in English, it's different types of things, you know. So, and, you know, hopefully I bring my own type of representation of my own, you know, background to it as well. You know, so yeah, I think it's incredibly important because, you know, it's easy to, there's like this weird barrier to entry in our community, you know what I mean? Especially as you begin to get down to the, you know, second, third, fourth generation, you know, where it's almost like we have to prove ourselves and prove our Latinness, you know what I mean? And there just is no such thing, you know what I mean? Like, we are, like, we're Latino, but we're also human. We're also American. I'm from New York, you know what I mean? So like, I'm a New Yorker as well. There are so many, you know, different aspects of it, and to try and put us in a box is just a disservice to how incredibly diverse and amazing our culture is, you know, and how it's meant for everybody, you know what I mean? Like, there are stories that are being told that anyone can relate to. We just happen to be Latinos telling this story, you know, so I definitely appreciate that for sure.
100%, man. And that's it, you know, like, yeah, we just happen to be Latinos, but we're telling stories that apply to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think, even like when we post videos of like what it means to be a Latino parent, or like a funny TikTok about like Latino parenting.
Yeah.
I have friends from all different cultures, especially immigrant cultures, who are like, yo, like that's exactly how my Filipino mom is, or like that's how my Korean mom is, or you know what I mean? And like, it might not be the same thing, but everyone can identify with, certain traits and experiences that we've shared because of where we come from. And that is part of being Latin is the experience of, of what your mom is like, and what foods you ate, and what you think of when you think of comic books or like basketball shoes.
Sure.
And so, those things can be shared throughout the world, and it doesn't matter what color your skin is or how you identify. It's these shared experiences that bring us closer together.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, so let's we talked about it in the beginning of the show, but for anybody that's not familiar, kind of break down what BrunoVision is, your latest show you've been doing.
Yeah, so BrunoVision started because I was feeling very corporate, and I wanted to break things up, and I was obviously very busy with the network, but I decided, if I don't have a creative outlet for myself, my other work is going to suffer. So BrunoVision started from a need for me to express myself authentically. And I think that's what I've been doing, with a little bit of an absurdist comedy twist. As I mentioned before, my character is based on Zach Galifianakis in Between Two Ferns, which was an old YouTube interview show.
I remember. Yeah, it's classic.
Just very uncomfortable situations. And it's not exactly that, but it's kind of, that's the inspiration. And then a lot of what happens is just based on some of my favorite absurdist comics, Eric Andre, Tim and Eric's awesome show, Tim Robinson, just these people who are taking comedy to the next level. And one of the main reasons I decided to do it was because I had never seen Latino comedy kind of break out of the mold in the same way that BrunoVision hopefully does. And the format is basically, it's a mix of man on the street, me just being me at my house with my cat, and then the main portion of the show is a green screen interview with an artist, tastemaker, dancer, anyone involved in something creative, pretty much. And offering different perspectives on life. I think the green screen offers something fantastic, because what I do is throughout the show I wear different hats, and based on the hat that I'm wearing, the green screen changes. So
it's amazing.
Almost like throughout the show I'm entering different worlds and bringing the audience and my guest into different worlds and having different experiences. So the goal of that is just to hopefully expand what it means to be a Latino comedian, or be part of comedy as a Latino. And it's also to, it's called BrunoVision because it is my vision for the world. It's what I wish the world was like. It's free. It's supposed to feel free. It's supposed to feel a little bit unhinged. It's because that's who I am. Anyone who knows me is like, when they watch the show, they're like, of course this is what you're doing. This makes perfect sense. And it also, for people who don't know me, it gives them a lens into, what the world could be if things were a little bit less structured. So I feel like I'm trying to take people on almost like a safe acid trip, like like you don't have to do the drug, but come along on this journey with me, and hopefully your life will feel a little bit different afterward. So that's the best way I can describe it.
No, I love that. I think we all have like weird and quirky sides of us that we don't share with the world. You know what I mean? That like we probably share with like our closest friends, or maybe our family, or like our partner. And so I think it's awesome to kind of see a show like this where you're really like tapping into that weird side of yourself and just like magnifying it times 100. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of fun. I definitely suggest anybody watching this to go and check it out. When can people check out episodes?
So episodes, the easiest way to do it is they stream every other week. A new episode comes out. on Wednesdays, and you can go stream it on LATV.com.
Nice.
Just click on watch and click on BrunoVision. Otherwise, check your local listings. They vary on cable, but
Sure.
If you go to LATV.com, you can check the schedule and type in your city, and you'll be able to find the schedule right there.
Love it. Well, dude, it's been good getting to connect again. I always say this when I talk to one of you guys out there on the West Coast, the LATV fan, but I got to come out there soon and make a trip and get to hang out with everybody in person.
Definitely, bro.
Yes.
I think we've been planning that, right? I think you're coming soon.
Yeah. I think we might have to push it back a little bit, but it's definitely happening. I'll be out there. We'll, be cool to kind of hop in and out of everybody's shows and have a little bit of fun, mixing and matching and seeing what the vibes are out there.
Cool, man. I'm super excited, and thank you for bringing the East Coast flavor and for being you, man. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. Well, listen, man, great talking to you, and I'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you being on the show. Man, big thank you to my guest this week, family, Bruno from LATV, of course, our very own LATV. He's actually one of the first people that I connected with here at the station before I even had a show. So great to catch up with him. Make sure you check out his show. It's hilarious. Before we get out of here, though, let's, of course, end, as we always do, on some positivity. Now, this week's quote comes to us from the late, great James Baldwin, and the quote is, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." I'll say that again. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And I just thought that was an incredibly appropriate quote for the events that we've been seeing as of late, and just an incredible messenger in James Baldwin, who spent his life fighting for the rights of people of color. And just seeing these events, like I started off the show talking about this crazy person with his bomb threats and talking about immigrants and all these different things. Like, we have to face a very real problem in this country, and that is racism, white supremacy, all of the above that's just been exacerbated and magnified from the president that we had the last 4 years. And it's important that all of us use our voices to push back against this and let people know that this has no place in this world or in this country. And it's just disgusting to see that people are willing to put the lives of others at risk just for their own crazy, selfish, and terrible ideas. And we cannot allow these people to feel empowered. And sadly, our government seems to be standing by idly, our court system standing by idly and letting people just kind of get off with a slap on the wrist. But we have to keep on fighting and keep these conversations going and keep calling out these people for what they are, these racists, white supremacists, these hate mongers. We need to remind them that they have no place here and that we are unified in this message. There are more of us out there who believe in equality than there are those who believe in these racist ideals. So we need to stay strong, unified, and keep calling things out as we see them and keep advocating for change and be the change that we want to see. Now, with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode this week. I appreciate y'all. I will be going on vacation this next week. I'm going to be taking some time off. Finally, your boy is tired. We'll have a great rerun, a little best of for you, of course, this next week, though, so you can still stay up on your recap fix. And then I'll be back, refreshed, ready to get back after it, giving you the news that matters. Until then, stay safe. I'm going to go get some rest. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.